In this lesson, we're going to add some of the little detail elements that surround the boiler. Let's start off with the bell. It's at the front of the boiler. So we'll go to left viewport. There's the bell, there's the mount. And what we're going to do is for this mounting part, we're going to use the spline tools. We're going to use a line. Remember to go down, make sure that the initial type is corner and the drag type is Bezier, which it is. We're just going to outline this shape. Start off, click. Next corner, click again. You may need to hit F3 to see what's going on. Out to here, click. Down and click. Meet the front of the boiler. Go down, click, click. All the way around, and when you get to the last, it's going to ask if you want to close the spline. You say yes. Let's hit F3. Looks like a good shape. And now you have some options. If you want it to be softer, you can do a vertex select. Let's just get these two for now. Roll down here, and you have fillet. And we used this earlier. Let's try to use a value just by clicking the arrows and see if it's too much. I think that looks good actually. So that was 1 inch. Go back up here. Let's add an extrude modifier. Go into perspective viewport so we can see the depth. Okay, F3. And now let's just add a little extrude. And that looks good to me. So that's a 1/2 inch. And now what we need to do, let's go to top viewport. We're going to just offset this from the center. It's kind of close to the center right now. So that looks good. Going to shift and drag to clone that object about the same distance on the other side. Let go. Let's make it an instance for now, just in case we make edits to it. It'll go from one object to the other. And perspective. Okay. So that's simple. We have a mount for the bell. Let's go back to the left viewport. We zoom in with the Z key. And once again, we're going to use a line. And we're going to create this bell shape. So what we're going to do, I'm going to start here in the middle. Click. I'm going to come out about that far. And then as I come down the side, I'm going to click and drag. And that's going to give us a curve there instead of a straight line on the corner. Let go, and I'm going to just come down. I'm going to click again right around there. And now we're going to come out this way. And right there. And now out here I'm going to click and drag again. And once again click at the bottom. So that's the profile for the bell. And you're never stuck with what you create when you're dragging out these splines. You can always change it. So let's say right here it's kind of sharp, might look fake. So let's do a fillet again. That's too much. That looks good. So you can still edit this after you create it, and you can always edit it later on with edit poly. We're going to lathe, hit L once, you get lathe, enter, and now you see it doesn't look quite right. So what we need to do is go down here, hit max, F3. That looks like it matches the profile properly. I'm hitting Alt X to make it transparent. The other thing we need to do, you can see there's like a little triangulation shading up here. Let's go up. Let's weld the core. And that takes care of that shading error there. And for the segments, let's go to 24. Okay, so let's go to perspective viewport. Make sure that the bell is fitting properly between these two. This one needs to be nudged out a little bit. Okay, so there's your bell, your basic bell shape. You have the freedom to do whatever you like. We can go above here with edit poly, so we hit E, edit poly, and extend that menu. If we wanted to, let's see, add some edges, I'm hitting F4. Let's go to edge selection. Oop, hold on, I'm on the wrong piece there. Edit poly, edge, Alt and R to ring, Control Shift and E will add a loop if the keyboard override is not on. There we go, or is on. So now we have that loop, and let's say we want a little detail there. Well, now we can go down here and click on extrude, Just give a little value here. And let's open that up. This is the width of the base. We can do something like that very simply, and then we can chamfer that edge to make it softer. If it's too big a value, you can right click to exit out and manually click it up a little bit. That looks good. Let's add one more segment there. Check. Alright, looks a little segmented. Let's add a smooth modifier. You go in the stack here, the rollout, hit S a few times, you'll see smooth in the list, and it makes it look segmented, auto smooth. And there you have it. Your bell, you can, again, edit more, add some trim pieces around the top, whatever you like. But you have a good base. It's still editable to an extent. We're going to add some detail around the bell. We're going to add the front light, maybe the mounting bracket. And let's get started. Left viewport again. We have this crown on the bell. I think there's also, if we hide the bell for a second, it's also this piece that comes down. So for this, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to top viewport. I'm going to zoom in on the bell. It's right there. And we don't see this in the blueprints, but I'm going to do a little modeling because I think this is how it should work, just based on what I saw online as far as reference. MVH primitives, TubeCat, excuse me. I'm going to drag out a circle that roughly meets the size of the top of the bell. Might need to hit F3 to see it a little better. And then I'm going to inset it by letting go and then click again. I'm going to go to left viewport. I'm going to bring that up to the top of the bell. It's probably at the origin level, which it is. Zoom in with Z. Okay, let's bring that down a little bit. Go to perspective with the P key. And what we're going to do now is convert that to edit poly. Actually, let's undo that. Let's give it more segments. We have 10. Let's make it 14. Okay. Now what we're going to do is F4 so we can see what we're doing. Let's select two edges. I like that. And what I'm going to do now is shift and drag to make this piece wrap around the bell a little bit. So what I'm doing now is shifting, dragging down, shift still held. Again, roughly to midway through that bracket. Somewhere around there looks good. Okay. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to border select, come up here. Going to make this little crown. I'm going to shift and drag that border. I'm going to hit R for scale, shift, scale. I'm going to hit W for move again, shift and drag. R for scale, shift and scale. W to move, shift and move. R to scale, shift and scale. Shift and scale again. And now I'm going to hit Alt and Q to isolate that mesh. Should happen in a second. There you go. Okay. And we're going to smooth this, I believe. We're going to hit a turbo smooth modifier on here. So what I want to do is maybe go to top viewport. And let's see. Segments probably could have been a little better. I should have picked a different number, but this is good. We'll learn how to work on the fly. Let's select these edges. We need an edge that splits this down the middle. So I selected one on this side, one on this side. Alt and R to ring. That's a ring selection. And we're going to hit Control, Shift, and E. That adds an edge loop right through the center. So now what we're going to do, go to Polygon, and on this side here, we're going to just select these polygons. It's roughly half. Let's go to Perspective Viewport, make sure we have the right half selected. Control and I to invert that selection. Let's delete that. Okay, and back to the top viewport. And now we're going to add symmetry above this. There we go, there's symmetry, and you see it disappears. We can turn off slice along mirror. Let's go to perspective again. Okay, so that looks right, but the problem is the edge that we added to cut this in half when we did the edit is going to throw off the circle from being smooth. So what I'm going to do now is add edit poly above this symmetry. I'm going to extend that, go to edge sub object. It's still selected because it's the last thing I had selected. And now I'm going to come up here into Graphite Modeling Tools tab, click on the tab, and I'm going to remove these edges. I believe it's under here. Yep. I'm going to hold Control and click Remove, and that gets rid of the edges and the vertices in one shot. Okay, so now we're good. Click out here. And let's just do this right now. Add a Turbo Smooth, hit the keyboard T 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Enter. F4. Okay, you can see that wraps around, but it looks a little, it still needs more detail. It's a little soft in some spots. So what we want to do, on the same edit poly, or you can add another one. Let's add another so our edits are in place. Click that, extend that. Let's go into the edge sub-object level. Let's grab that edge, Alt and R to ring select, and let's get the connect settings. So come down here actually. Click on the settings box. Brings up the dialog. Let's make it 2. And then down here it's the pinch value. We're going to roll that up. We're going to put those edges close to where the transitions are, like where the faces change direction. And that's going to kind of tighten up those edges. I like that value right there. I'm going to click OK. We're going to do the same thing on this set of edges. Alt and R. We're going to do connect. Roll in a little bit. It looks good. I'm going to check it off. It's okay. And then we're going to do it right here. Alt and R. Connect. I think for this one I want one segment. Okay, and we can zero this out. That's okay. Let's go back up. Let's turn on a Turbo Smooth. And there you see a little bit of a difference. It looks more like a machine part or an actual part. Pretty good with that. I'm going to turn off Turbo Smooth again. And now here's a cool thing. We're going to go to left viewport. We're going to zoom in on it with the Z key. Grab a vertex. We're going to get these two, the bottom two of this little extension. We're going to hit the W key and we're just going to move it down, just like that. Okay. Let's go back up and turn on Turbo Smooth. Now, right now it looks a little angular in the corners, but we're going to add a shell modifier, and what that's going to do is these are going to round off once we have some thickness to the mesh. So above that edit poly, hit S 5 times. And it makes a big, large outer amount. We don't want that, so we click to zero that out. And let's go on the inner amount. Just push it in a little bit. About a 1/2 inch. And let's make it 2 segments looks good. And let's also go up to Turbo Smooth and one more iteration. There you have it. We have a pretty clean looking little housing for the bell. We can always close off the top. It's not a big deal as well. Go to Edit Poly, the top one. And what we'll do is F4, go to border selection, select that border. Let's just come down here. Let's just collapse that. Okay? So now you have like a bunch of triangles on the top here. And as long as you use an even number of segments, you should be able to go in here. If you wanted all quads, it really doesn't matter on this object, but let's show you how it works anyway. Let's select that edge and now go every other edge. Okay? Now if we backspace those, they disappear, and what you're left with, these are all now triangles that are quads, which is pretty simple, works pretty well, and probably better for unwrapping, things like that if you need to unwrap. So let's unhide everything again. Okay, so that's that little housing for the bell. I'm going to just shift it down a touch. It looks good. Let's go to left viewport. And in the center here, there's probably some sort of pivot. Just extend this down a little further as well. Turn off Turbo Smooth. I'm going to bring this down a little bit more. Okay, that's better. Turn back on Turbo Smooth. And we're just going to make standard primitive cylinder. Right here, we're going to make a cylinder. About that diameter. Pull off to the side to give it some depth. Let's go to perspective. Okay, so now what I want to do is position that. Give it a good height value. It's too short right now. So let's pull it through this side so we see what's going on. Alright. Want it a little shorter than that. Just adjust that value. That looks good. It's kind of like the little post that it would pivot on. When they pull a string, it'll rock back and forth. Let's make that an edit poly. Let's grab these two end polygons. Control to select the second one. Let's control and click on the edge icon right here in selection. That converts the face selection to an edge selection. And now we're just going to give a slight chamfer. Let's zero that out. Do it by hand. That looks good. I'm not going to go with more segments because it's such a small piece we won't see that, but this little bit helps catch light when you render. Check mark for OK. Let's hit F4. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to pause the video, and in the next video we'll come down here and do the headlight of the train. Remember to save your file and pause the video.